All right, buckle up for a deep dive into some pretty out there stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You guys sent us this YouTube video all about immortality,
Huh?
but it's not your typical, like scientific documentary. We're talking guided meditation,
Mm.
hypnosis,
Oh, really?
and some pretty wild theories about
Yeah.
what they call junk DNA, the 99% of our DNA that
Yeah.
scientists are still like trying to figure out.
Right.
Our mission to unpack all this,
Okay.
see how it lines up with what science actually knows,
Yeah.
and then, let you decide what to make of it.
Sounds good.
No endorsements from us, just a good old-fashioned
Yeah.
critical analysis.
I love it. What strikes me about this video
Yeah.
is how it tackles the topic. It's using these insights from altered states of consciousness.
Right.
Instead of like traditional research methods.
Yeah.
It's definitely pushing the boundaries of
Yeah.
what people usually consider like scientific evidence.
Totally. So the video features this woman named Lily, right?
Okay.
She's being guided through this visualization where she's asked to, observe the DNA of the world's longest living beings.
Interesting.
What she describes is
Yeah.
pretty mind-blowing.
What does she see?
She sees these beings as,
Hmm.
subterranean and reptilian, kinda.
Oh, wow.
They're living for, 500 to 1,000 years.
That's a long time. It's fascinating because this idea of like reptilian humanoids, right? It pops up
Right.
all over the place in myths, legends,
Yeah.
across so many cultures.
Yeah,
Makes you wonder,
I know.
why do these images keep coming back?
Ah.
Even in something like DNA research, which
Wow.
you wouldn't really think would be related.
Totally. It's like they tap into something
Yeah.
really deep
Yeah,
in our collective imagination or something.
absolutely.
But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
Lily starts talking about this junk DNA, the stuff that makes up most of our genetic code.
Yeah.
And she's suggesting it might hold the key to this crazy longevity that she's seeing in these beings.
Wow. So she's saying it's not actually junk.
Yeah, it's far from useless.
Interesting.
She describes it as super important for adaptability,
Okay.
biodiversity, and
Yeah.
even
Right.
something she calls interdimensional connections.
Whoa. Okay, before we get too carried away,
Yeah.
it's important to point out that scientists actually use the term
Oh,
non-coding DNA
right,
these days.
right.
And while we're still figuring out all the details,
Yeah.
research is showing that it's
Yeah.
definitely not just junk.
Yeah.
It plays a role in things like
Uh-huh.
gene regulation,
Yeah.
how genes get turned on and off,
Right.
and also epigenetics,
Hmm.
how our environment, our
Right.
lifestyle can actually change how our genes work.
So we're not talking about literal garbage,
Right.
but more like a part of our DNA that we're just starting to understand.
Yeah, exactly.
And Lily, through this visualization, is connecting it to
Yeah.
this potential for incredibly long lifespans, just like those
Yeah.
mythical reptilian beings.
Right. It really underscores how much we still don't know about our own DNA. It's like this huge uncharted
Yeah.
jungle full of surprises waiting to be discovered.
And this deep dive, it just keeps getting deeper. The video goes on to talk about telomeres,
Okay.
those protective caps on our chromosomes that get shorter
Right. Right.
as we age.
And what does Lily see when she looks at telomeres?
Her visualization of the cellular world gets really interesting here.
Okay.
She describes this mesh-like structure inside cells that becomes tense and rigid as
Okay.
we age.
Uh-huh.
And she suggests that this tension
Yeah.
could be a factor in cellular mutations and maybe even tumor formation.
Interesting. Now, it's important to remember this isn't like
Right.
a literal description of telomeres, right? But it is a pretty cool metaphor, I think.
Yeah.
Scientists know that telomeres get shorter
Right.
with every cell division,
Yeah.
and that's linked to aging.
Right.
They've even found this enzyme called telomerase
Okay.
that can counteract that shortening.
Oh, wow.
And it's often really active in cancer cells, which is one reason why they can keep dividing like crazy.
So she's saying that this tense mesh
Yeah.
that she's visualizing is somehow connected to the telomeres, and that releasing this tension could be the key to
That's interesting.
slowing down aging.
Yeah, it really makes you think, right?
Yeah.
And while we can't say for sure if Lily's visualization
Right.
directly matches up
Right.
with all the scientific details, it does raise some interesting questions
Totally.
about the role of cellular stress in aging and disease.
It makes you wonder
Right.
if there's more to discover about the connection
Yeah.
between like our mental and emotional state and what's happening at the cellular level.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got these ancient, long-lived reptilian beings,
Uh-huh.
the potential of junk DNA,
Yeah.
and now this whole visualization of cellular tension linked to aging.
Right.
This video is really weaving a wild story.
Yeah, it is. So where does Lily's exploration of her DNA go next?
Well, as Lily goes deeper into this visualization, she starts talking about like limitations
Okay.
programmed into our DNA.
Okay.
And she's suggesting these limitations affect like how long we live,
Hmm.
how susceptible we are to diseases.
Yeah.
It's like these limits aren't just, biological facts,
Yeah.
but something that's been like imposed on us.
Wait, so she's saying that like
Yeah.
something like messed with our DNA to
Oh.
keep us from like reaching our full potential.
Right.
That's getting into some pretty wild territory.
It definitely gets into the realm of like those conspiracy theories,
Right. Yeah.
about hidden forces controlling humanity.
Yeah. But we do know that things like our environment, our lifestyle choices,
Right.
even our thoughts and emotions can impact how our genes actually express themselves.
Right.
That's what scientists call epigenetics.
All right.
For example, there are studies showing that chronic stress
Yeah.
can actually change the way our genes work, make us more susceptible to certain diseases.
So even though this idea of like some external force like programming our DNA
Yeah.
might seem kind of far out, there is some truth
Right.
to the idea that our experiences, our choices
Right.
can really impact our biology. It's like we have more control than we
Yeah.
think, but maybe not in the way that Lily's describing.
Exactly. And that's where critical thinking is so important.
Yeah.
We can acknowledge that complex interplay
Yeah.
between our genes
Right.
and our environment without jumping to conclusions
Yeah.
about, sinister forces at work.
Right.
What's important is that Lily's experience, however we interpret it,
Yeah.
it highlights how complex our DNA is and how much we still have to learn.
Totally. It's a good reminder to stay curious.
Yeah.
Open-minded, even when we come across ideas that like challenge our current understanding.
Absolutely.
Speaking of challenging ideas, the video introduces another woman
Okay.
named Gino.
Okay.
She joins Lily in this visualization.
Right.
And Gino claims to be free from these limitations
Oh.
that Lily's talking about.
So what's Gino's perspective?
Her perspective is really interesting. She
Yeah.
describes her junk DNA as like a basket of tools that she can use to adapt to thrive.
Okay.
She claims to have no programmed limitations on her lifespan and really emphasizes personal choice and taking control of your own biology.
So Gino's basically saying she's like hacked her DNA.
Yeah. Unlocked its full potential, and now she's living without limits.
That's a pretty empowering message.
It is.
Even if it's hard to like square with science,
Yeah, I know. But then again, how do you scientifically prove or disprove
Right.
something that someone experiences in an altered state of consciousness?
Exactly.
Hmm.
That's the tricky part. We're dealing with a different kind of knowledge,
Yeah,
one that doesn't neatly fit into the scientific method.
right.
But even if we approach it with like healthy skepticism,
Yeah,
it can still make us curious
yeah,
and lead us to ask new questions.
totally. And one question that Gino's experience brings up for me is,
Yeah.
could we actually have more control over our biology than we realize?
It's a good question.
Not necessarily in this like hacking our DNA way,
Right.
but maybe through the choices we make,
Yeah.
the environments we put ourselves in,
Right.
the way we think and feel
Absolutely.
about ourselves and the world.
It's a fascinating question. And science is starting to explore that
Yeah.
through things like epigenetics
Right.
and the mind-body connection.
Right.
We know thoughts and emotions can directly impact our physical health. Gino's experience, even if it's metaphorical,
Yeah.
could be pointing to an even deeper level of connection
Yeah.
between our minds and our genes.
It's like we're being challenged to consider that we're not just passengers in our own bodies,
Right.
but active participants in shaping our own health
Yeah.
and maybe even our destiny.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to the topic of death,
Okay.
which the video tackles head on.
Okay.
What does Gino have to say about this ultimate frontier?
Well, Gino's view of death is quite different
is?
from how most people see it.
Okay.
She doesn't see it as an end,
Yeah.
but more like a transition,
Okay,
a natural part
right.
of a larger cycle of existence.
Okay, that sounds kind of familiar. It aligns with certain spiritual beliefs
Yeah,
about, like, the soul or consciousness continuing on after death.
right.
Is that what she's saying?
It's similar,
Yeah.
but Gino takes it a step further.
Okay.
She describes death as a process of, like, information transfer, where the experiences and knowledge gained in the lifetime
Yeah.
aren't lost, but, like, integrated into a greater consciousness.
Whoa, that's a pretty mind-blowing concept. It's like death isn't deleting data,
Right.
but like uploading it to the cloud, right?
Yeah.
Contributing to some massive cosmic library of experience.
It's definitely a unique perspective.
Yeah.
And it challenges that materialist viewpoint,
Right.
that death is just like the end.
Yeah.
It raises questions about consciousness and whether it can exist
Yeah.
independently of the physical body.
And remember, Gino claims to have accessed the full potential of her DNA.
right,
So maybe this unique view of death
Yeah.
is somehow tied to that. It's like she's glimpsed
Yeah.
a different reality, one where death isn't this terrifying endpoint,
Yeah.
but just another stage in a much larger journey.
Right.
So Gino's perspective on death is definitely like thought-provoking.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about like the practical stuff, you know? Does she offer any insights into how we can actually like
Yeah.
tap into this so-called junk DNA
Right.
and maybe achieve this level of freedom,
Yeah.
longevity that she's talking about?
Well, Gino doesn't really give like a step-by-step guide,
Right?
but she does highlight some key areas we can focus on
Okay.
to potentially influence our genetic expression
Okay.
and maybe even rewrite those limiting beliefs
Right.
that might be holding us back. One of the most interesting things she brings up
Yeah.
is this concept of bioplasticity.
Bioplasticity.
Yeah, it's like our cells have this like inherent flexibility
Right.
that allows them to change and adapt.
So it's not like our DNA is like set in stone.
Right.
It's more like this dynamic code that can
Yeah.
be influenced by our choices.
Exactly. Gino suggests that by understanding and like harnessing this bioplasticity,
Yeah.
we can become more active participants
Okay.
in shaping our own biology.
Okay, so that sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do all that?
Like, what are some concrete steps we can take to increase this bioplasticity and unlock this potential?
Gino points to a few interconnected areas.
Okay.
One of the most important is the power
Yeah.
of our thoughts and beliefs.
Okay.
She emphasizes that our minds and bodies aren't separate,
Right.
but like deeply intertwined.
Right.
And what we think can actually have an impact on our cells,
Wow.
even our DNA.
So it's not just about like positive thinking to feel good.
Right.
Our thoughts could actually be changing our biology on a fundamental level.
It's more about like being mindful of the stories we tell ourselves and
Right.
making sure they're aligned
Yeah.
with the reality we want to create. If we're constantly like bombarded with negative self-talk,
Right.
limiting beliefs about aging and disease,
Yeah.
it can actually impact our gene expression
Wow.
and contribute to those outcomes.
It's like we need to become the authors
Yeah.
of our own biological narratives, right? Exactly.
Rewriting the script to reflect health, vitality, longevity.
Absolutely.
Gino also mentions energetic hygiene.
Oh, yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
She describes it as like being aware of the energies we allow into our field, both from external sources
Right.
and our own internal states.
Right.
It's about protecting our energy from negativity,
Okay.
whether it's stressful environments,
Yeah.
toxic relationships, or our own negative thoughts and emotions.
It's like being mindful of what we feed our minds and bodies.
Exactly.
Right. Like we wouldn't eat junk food all the time.
Right.
We shouldn't be consuming negative energy all the time.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
Just as we nourish our physical bodies with healthy food,
Right.
we need to nourish our energy field
Okay.
with positive experiences,
Right.
supportive relationships, practices that cultivate inner peace.
So things like meditation,
Yeah.
spending time in nature,
Uh-huh.
doing things we love, surrounding ourselves with positive people
Right.
could actually be influencing our DNA.
According to Gino, these practices aren't just about feeling good. They're crucial for maintaining a healthy, energetic state, which then influences our physical health
Right.
and even our genetic expression.
It's a holistic approach, right?
Absolutely.
recognizing that our physical, mental, emotional,
Right.
energetic bodies are all connected.
It's all
It's
connected.
like we're finally acknowledging that intricate dance
Yeah.
between our inner and outer worlds
Right.
and realizing we have more power to influence it
Yeah.
than we ever thought. What other insights does Gino share
Hmm.
about tapping into this like deeper level of
Yeah.
self-mastery?
Gino emphasizes the importance of connection.
Connection.
Yeah, it's about connecting with our intuition,
Mm.
our higher self, and maybe even something greater than ourselves.
Okay.
Whether that's a spiritual source
Mm.
or a feeling of interconnectedness with all of life.
So it's not just about mastering like our external environment.
Right.
It's also about cultivating
Yeah.
a deep connection with our inner world.
Exactly. Gino suggests that by nurturing this connection,
All right.
we can tap into a source of wisdom,
Mm.
guidance that transcends our limited egoic minds.
It's like accessing this inner compass that can
Mhm.
guide us towards like
Yeah.
greater health, vitality, maybe even longevity.
That's a fascinating idea.
It is. It suggests there's a deeper intelligence within us,
Yeah.
like an inner wisdom we can learn to trust. But it also raises questions about how we access that wisdom.
Right.
Is it through meditation, intuition?
Gino doesn't give a specific method,
Right.
but she emphasizes listening to our inner voice, paying attention to our dreams, intuitions,
Yeah.
cultivating a sense of trust
Right.
in our own innate wisdom.
It's like recognizing we have access
Yeah.
to a deeper knowing
Right.
that goes beyond our rational minds.
Exactly.
It sounds like finding a balance, right?
Yeah.
Between the scientific understanding of biology
Mm-hmm.
and a more intuitive,
Right.
maybe even spiritual connection with ourselves.
Precisely. Embracing both the scientific and the mystical,
Right.
recognizing they're not mutually exclusive,
Yeah.
but complementary aspects
Right.
of a holistic understanding of who we are.
Wow. This deep dive has really taken us on a journey.
Hasn't it?
We started exploring the mysteries of DNA,
Right.
but it feels like we've ended up exploring the mysteries of our own consciousness
Hmm.
and the potential that's within us.
Absolutely. And while Gino's experiences
Yeah.
might seem extraordinary,
Right.
she suggests that we all have the capacity
Mm-hmm.
to access this level of self-mastery.
Mm.
It's about remembering who we truly are,
Right.
reclaiming our innate power,
Yeah.
making choices that align with our highest potential.
It's a powerful message, reminding us that we're not just victims
Right.
of our genes or our circumstances,
Right.
but active creators of our own realities.
Yes.
This has been a truly thought-provoking deep dive.
It has.
I'm sure our listener has a lot to ponder
Yeah.
after hearing Gino's story and all these fascinating concepts.
Definitely a lot to unpack.
We encourage our listener to explore these ideas further,
Yeah.
experiment with the practices Gino suggests,
Uh-huh.
and most importantly, trust their own inner wisdom
Absolutely.
as they embark on their own journey of self-discovery.
Beautifully said.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
on this incredible exploration. And remember, the journey continues,
It does.
both within ourselves
Yeah.
and in the world of scientific discovery.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep diving deep.